Bhagavatpadam Shankaram Lokashankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashyakritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaye Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Om Namah Pranavatthaye Shuddha Jnanaikamurtaye Nirmalaya Prashantaye Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditam Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. You can repeat after me the Dhyana Shlokam. Apyayantu mamangani
Apyayantu mamangani
Vak prana chakshustrotramato balamindriyani cha sarvani
Vak pranaschakshukshotramato balamindriyani
sarvani
sarvani
sarvam brahma upanishadam
Sarvam Brahma Upanishadam
aham brahma nirakuryam
Maham Brahma Nirakuryam
ma brahma nirakarot
Mama Brahma Nirakarot
anirakaranamastvanirakaranam me astu
Anirakaranamasta Nirakaranam Astu
tadatmani nirateya upanishatsu
Tadatmani Nirateya Upanishatsu
dharmaste mayi santu
Dharmaste Mayi Santu
te mayi santu.
Mayi Santu.
Om Shanti
Om
Shanti
Shanti
Shanti.
Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Human life is full of desires. There is no human being who is without desire at any time. We will look at some exceptions later. This desire arises from the fact that we know there is a desirable object. The object need not be a physical object, tangible object. The desire can be for anything. People say, I seek love. I don't know what if they all mean the same thing when they say I seek love. I'm sure everybody has a different definition of what is seek. Or I seek God. And sometimes a perceptive person says, I'm looking for that elusive thing called happiness. To get it, to even have a desire for anything, one must know the object. I cannot say, I desire Gudabu. What is a Gudabu? I don't know. And if I don't know what a Gudabu is, there's no question of a desire for that object. A desire comes because I know that object of desire, and I also know, or at least I think, it is desirable. Very loaded statement. I know there is an object to desire, and I think that object is desirable. One may find later, after one has gained that object, that it was not all that I thought it would be. You know, it is like those travel brochures. We don't know a place, a person may not know a place like Cairns exists in the south of France. Then you see some travel brochures and it talks so highly of that place that a desire is generated. Then the person struggles hard to put together enough funds to go to that place. Whether he has that experience that the travel agent so glowingly talked about in the brochure is a different matter. We connect the object because we somehow think that it is going to give me what I am looking for. And then when one questions oneself about what is it that I'm looking for, the person starts thinking, what am I looking for? Oh, yeah, I told you, I want to go to Cairns. Why? There is something beyond that as well. And to do that, I need wealth. I need money. So now the object of desire becomes money. And to gain money, I have to do certain actions. So you have the sequence of knowing the object of desire, thinking that that object is desirable, therefore generating ichcha, a desire, and then there is kriya. I have to do something to gain that object. And when I have done that, there is phala. There is the result. Then I find that I either get that object I thought I wanted, or I get less than what I thought I wanted, or I get more than what I thought I wanted, or I perhaps something completely different. In this sequence of events, jnanam about an object and thinking that it is a desirable object, a ichcha for that object, and following the ichcha, a kriya, an action, and eventually a kriya phala, the result of that action. At every step, there is question mark. My jnanam of that object, remember this object is not necessarily a physical, tangible object, may or may not be complete or completely correct. Then the ichcha develops, and there the question mark is, the ichcha develops because I think that that object is going to give me something that I want, even if I'm not able to clearly spell out what it is. You don't look for that object for the object's sake. You don't desire a house for the house's sake. You don't desire fame for the fame's sake. You don't desire to go to Cannes for Cannes' sake. There is something beyond that. That's something I am not even very clear about, and yet I think this is what is going to lead me there. And then I do the Kriya. There again, there's a question mark. Whatever action I do, I think that action will produce that result which I have, as which I desire, the object that I desire. There again, I'm not very certain. I know there are many other variables that are involved, not just what I do. Amongst them is one variable which I don't even know, one set of variables. And on top of all that is the fact that I know this. Unless there is Ishvara's grace, no end can be obtained. That is why when you go out to do something very special, like write an exam, for example, I'm going to write the IIT entrance exam. We pray to Ishvara. I have done all the preparation I can do. I worked very hard. But I don't know how hard others have worked. How much more intelligent they are than I. I pray to Ishvara. Anything at all we start. We want to start studying something, we pray. Just now, we said a small prayer. Apyayantu mamangani vak prana chakshu shrotra matobalam indriyani cha sarvani. May this process of learning that I'm trying to get into, may that be successful. So there are many unknown factors and question marks. And then, of course, the last stage, the Kriya Phala, is not even in our hands. We continue to live our life on the basis of this kind of cycle. We come to know of something, we desire that something, we work towards that something, and we hope that we will get what we set out to get. You take any activity that anybody does, you can trace this sequence. Vedanta, one group of people think has all the answers. And another group of people, much larger group of people, think it is all mumbo jumbo. But amongst the people who accept that there is something there, even if I don't know what it is, They know that Veda has two broad components. One part of it, which is the voluminous first part of it, says whatever you want to achieve, I will give you the method. You want vitta, wealth. You want putra. You want anything at all. I will give you. I will give you the method. Even if you say, I want to go to Svargaloka, I think all this that I can get here in this world is of limited value. My whole purpose of life is to go to Svargaloka. Then also, this portion of the Veda gives us very detailed instructions of what we should do. Interestingly, whatever you want to achieve in the world, I want to achieve wealth, for example, most commonly, I know what I have to do. And that's not necessarily the same for everybody. But here is a text which says, you want wealth? Here, do this. And in this exact fashion. How do I know it'll give me the result of gaining wealth? Because I think that the Veda is the source of knowledge for these things. Why do I think so? Why do I have that Shraddha? We will look at separately. But we accept the Veda, and whatever Veda says, we do. We live a life according, or we should be living a life according to what Veda tells us at different stages of our life. It is a source of knowledge. A knowledge of what? The first portion, the Karma Kanda, the voluminous portion, gives us the knowledge of what we should do. It is like writing a manual for cycling. I want to go from place A to place B on a bicycle. I can read a book and say, do like this. Get on the seat, push the pedal, hang on to the handle. Don't lose your balance. But just reading that, gaining that knowledge is not adequate. Having gained that knowledge, I have to do. Somebody has been married for 15 years, doesn't have a child, wants a putra. So Veda says, you want putra because he's tried, he's a great believer in science. So he went to all the fertility clinics everywhere. Nothing worked. So he fell back on Veda. Rather than start with Veda as the priority, did everything else, failed, and came back saying, okay, maybe I should try something, I'm desperate. And Veda says, do this yajna called Putra Kameshti. And it gives complete prescription of what you should do, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, etc. But that alone is not enough. He has to actually do the yajna. In order to get that result that he's looking for, he has to do. And he has to do within certain prescription, correctly, not deviating from that. Then Veda says your Ichha will get Purti. How do I know I will get if I do this? Because I have Shraddha. How do I know I will top in the exam if I study well? Where is the correlation? There's a broad correlation. But what if I were to completely go blank when I'm sitting in the exam hall? It will not happen. What if it is a competitive exam and everybody else does better than I do, even though I have studied very hard? There is a correlation. At least in this kind of example, we have seen this happen. Oh, he's worked very hard, therefore he achieved success. But how many people, for one person who worked very hard and achieved the success, do you know how many people worked very hard and did not achieve the success? There is a broad correlation. Well, Swami Ji, there is data. I can collect all the data and produce this analysis. Statistically, I can tell you. We do that also with Puttakamishti Yajna, or what stopped you? There is enough evidence of Puttakamishti Yajna producing the result. But in all this, there is always an element which we call Adidaivam, Ishvara. That Ichha for a desired end, Shastra clubs into two broad categories to begin with, Artha and Kama. I want this end because it removes certain dukkha. That is called Artha. Artha, Purushartha, removes certain dukkha, dukkha nivritti. And second, Kama, Sukha Prapti. You can think of any desire, they will slot into one of these two. Where does the desire for Svargaloka fit in? Because Svargaloka has nothing to do with this Janma. That result be obtained after this body has fallen. How do I get to Svargaloka? There are certain prescribed karma you should do. But also live a life of dharma. So this third category of Purushartha is called dharma. That I lead a helpful life. That I lead a life which shuns adharma. And I do all the Vedic karma which I'm told to do for gaining Svargaloka after this Janma. So all of these whether it's artha or kama or dharma, become categories of what you want to achieve. In artha and kama also there is a framework of dharma. But you can also gain artha and kama without staying within the framework. There will be consequences later. I remember in Delhi, one telephone linesman came to me. My telephone came, you know those old days telephones, every now and then it will go dead. And he wanted extra money for him. I said, I will give you because I need the phone working. Because I know if I don't give you, you will not do the job. But you want to think a little bit about what happens when you get this money, which is not dharma. You will go and buy sweets for your children. Something will go wrong. One of them might have a stomach ache. Then you will go to the doctor and you will spend more money on the doctor than what you've taken from me. Is that what you want? He didn't, after that, didn't take the money. There'll be consequences. We don't know what kind of consequences. We don't know when it will happen, but there will be consequences. So artha, kama, and dharma and their prescription for action is available in the karma kanda. Swami G, very difficult for me to read the whole karma kanda. The karma kanda you said is voluminous. It is voluminous. Therefore, we have ritviks, priests, who have studied, who have spent their life studying the karma kanda. They know precisely what is to be done. So like software companies in the US do, you offload it to the ritvik. You know, there's a comic strip called, I think it was called Beetle Bailey. And there's a character called Beetle, one of these soldiers, and a sergeant. And the sergeant keeps hounding him, making him dig holes, fill holes, doing something or the other all the time. So one day when he was sitting under a tree, relaxing, sergeant came and said, "What happened? I asked you to dig a hole." He said, "Oh, I've offshored it to Bangalore." There's a company in Bangalore, do it for me. That's what we do. We hand over the conduct of the yajna to the priest. The Kameshti yajna is not easy. It's an elaborate ritual. But you continue to be the yajamana. The phala comes to you. I don't want a situation where the ritvik is doing the putra kameshti and he has the phala. You get the phala. So everything that you can ask for, the methodology is given. And you follow that methodology, you do that karma either directly by yourself or by offloading it on somebody else. and paying them dakshina, you do that karma. Shastra, Veda clearly says you will get that. But Veda also says, when you do this, when you have a desire for certain artha, or a certain kama, or a certain dharma, please think a little bit more carefully about it. I said at each stage of this, jnanam, ichcha, kriya, and kriyapala, there are question marks. Shastra now says that end that you seek, please examine carefully if it is really the end. Is there an end to that end? I said that desire is there all the time in us. What happens when the desire is fulfilled? Is that the end? Is the end the end? It is endless. That desire fulfilled spawns more desire. Not only does it spawn more desire, whatever I get out of that doesn't last. Whatever end I work for, it just disappears. Poof. Any end. It leads to many, many more ends. Sometimes when you get that end, let's say you get an end for a certain karma, there is an immediate and temporary sukha prapti. It just is there and disappears. It has a beginning and it has an end. That end itself has an end. And by golly, how much effort I have to put in to gain that end? So much effort, many of which is very painful. So much effort that there are many other things that I would like to have, but I can't because I have to focus on this. Shastra says, you want it, there's no problem. I have a complete package available for you. But I encourage you to think about this. But Swami Ji, I know no better. I get an end, I become a little happy for a little while, then I go to the next one and the next one and the next one. In perpetuity, I am doing only that. I am a wanting person because I'm all the time wanting, never get away from that. Whatever I do, whatever I gain, like the shruti of a musician, keeps on going in the background, never stops. I have my highs and lows, but the want, never stops. Swami, I don't know any better. How do I handle it? What do I do? There is another small portion at the end of each Veda a section called Upanishads. All of them together called Vedanta, Vedasyanta, Vedanamanta. At the end of the Veda, which says, okay, you have tried all the tricks that I've taught you in the Karma Kanda. Sooner or later, you discover that that is not adequate. Sooner or later, you will realize that it is not satisfying. When that happens, when you start questioning the end of ends, he says, come to Papa. Not Punni Papa, come to Daddy. The daddy of all knowledge. Come to Vedanta. Come to the Upanishads. There I will tell you how to overcome all of these limitations that you have seen in every Sukha Prapti, every Dukkha Nivritti that you have attempted. But Swami Ji, I thought Swargaloka was the end. Once I get to Swargaloka, that's it. I don't need to do anything more. Because Shastra says so. Shastra says, if I go to Swargaloka, there is no dukkha. You get into Swargaloka with you don't get born in a womb and grow into the thing, go through all the pain of growing. You have a appropriate sharira for that loka. And there in that loka you have only sukha. There is no hunger, there is no pain, there is no growing old. Shouldn't I be striving for that from you? Certainly you can try. It is not easy. The kind of things that you expected to do to gain that loka doesn't even come naturally to most people. But having put in all the effort, which also every time, remember, when you put in that kind of effort in this loka, in this Martya loka, you are necessarily not gaining many other things you think you should gain. You are, in a sense, sacrificing a lot of things which I wish I had that. I wish I had that. But having then gained that loka, then what? There is no such thing as eternal Swarga. Unlike an eternal heaven. You go to that loka, Swarga loka or any other loka. The jiva goes there with a sharira which is appropriate for that loka. Stays in the loka for a length of time. And then come back. Come back as Manushya. Come back as a plant. Come back as an animal or an insect. But come back. It is like, in the old days, now things have changed. But in the 70s, when I used to travel, you had very limited foreign exchange. So if you really wanted to take the same example, go to the south of France for a holiday, you could stay there only as long as your foreign exchange lasted. Shine punye martiloke vishanti. To come back. When you exhaust your foreign exchange, you come back. So even that is not the solution. But Swami Ji, what you're saying is that I can gain that sukha without limitation. That doesn't sound logical. Vedanta says, yes, it is possible. That state is called mokṣa. When you have no limits, nothing blocks you. And that mokṣa, that state, you're already in. It's like a bombshell. I'm making so much efforts, I'm doing this, I'm doing that to try and get little sukha and get rid of the little niggling dukkha. Can Vedanta say, I am the very swarupa of infinite Ananda? You really want to know? Vedanta says, listen carefully, do shravanam, hear, keep on hearing. Do mananam, contemplate. Hearing is relatively easy. Contemplating, thinking about what you hear is tough. Not the thinking itself. The thinking is not tough. Because all of us have experiences. We have all drawn conclusions about what I want, about how I can get it, about acquiring what will give me that. And I also know at the end of it that all of this is limited. Suddenly Vedanta comes and tells you, no, you're making a mistake. It is not very easy to accept. This is a conclusion I have drawn after years of living. This conclusion has been buttressed by everything that I have been seeing around me. It has been reinforced by every person I have interacted with, except a few odd fellows who wear this kind of clothes. You tell me, no, that's not correct. But I came to you, Swamiji, to understand the reality. Because I've already drawn a lot of conclusions and I want them validated. All of them, please make a bundle and keep. Don't throw it away. Keep it there. Listen to what Vedanta has to say. And examine why whatever Vedanta says is at variance with what I think I know. That examination is contemplation. I know because I have read it in the internet. I've heard it from somebody. I read in a book. I drew some conclusions myself. All of them constantly tell me that I am a limited being in whichever form. But here is something suddenly one says, no, you're wrong. You are unlimited. You are limitless, Purna. How do we reconcile these? That reconciliation, removal of any doubts in this area is mananam, contemplative thinking, vichara. So Shravanam and Mananam both become critically important for me to try and understand what Vedanta says. Vedanta starts very clearly saying that which is infinite, limitless, which is the very karanam for what I see in this jagat. That is you. Goes on to explain it and makes us think. This Vedanta, as I said, is all Upanishads. And this is there at the end of each of these four Vedas. Rik Veda, Yadur Veda, Atharva Veda, and Sama Veda. It is there at the end of each of these Vedas. Why should this be there in so many different Vedas, in so many different Upanishads? The message is the same. Firstly, because in our tradition, each family follows one Veda. So when you do your Abhivadaye, Angirasa, whatever, Yajushakha Adhyayi or Rikshakha Adhyayi, that's your family Veda, which we have lost quite a bit in the last few generations. So I study that Veda. At the end of that Veda is Vedanta for that particular Veda. So it has to be there in all the Vedas. That's not the only reason. The message is so subtle and so different from our common knowledge that to understand this, overcome previously conceived notions, I have to examine the teaching in many different ways. Shastra itself helps us do that. There are also very standard methodologies for learning this. Therefore, you need a teacher, a guru, who has understood this from his guru or her guru, who can use the same methodology and make it easier for us to understand. So you have so many different Upanishads, each of which gives us the same message, not just in the words themselves. The words themselves are inadequate. But the unfoldment of those words to make us think is there in every Veda. The one we are now trying to study, called Kenopanishad, starts with the word Kena, by whom, by what. And therefore it is called Kenopanishad, distinguish it from other Upanishads. 10 Upanishads are considered primary Upanishads to study. There are many other Upanishads. All of them have the same message. Isha kena prashna katho mundaka mandukya Taitreya Bardharnika Chandogya are considered primary because for them detailed commentaries are available. So we study those normally. These words of the Vedanta are cryptic. Sometimes they sound paradoxical. Even the Bhagavad Gita has certain interesting paradoxes. So somebody has to help us unravel that and understand those paradoxes. All the Vedanta tell us, including Kenopanishad, that you are limitless. It's about you. Now go back to this original statement that we are all full of desires, and these desires come from the knowledge of the object of desire. If the object of desire is something which is known to us within this world, wealth, fame, whatever else, then there is this knowledge called prama, and the object of knowledge has to be known by a knower, pramatru. So you need a pramatru, the knower, to know the object of knowledge. And to know that the object of knowledge is desirable. The second set of desires, I said, doesn't belong to this loka, but another loka after death. There the same thing applies. I have to know that there is something called a Swargaloka that's available. I have to know that that's a very desirable loka. I have to know these so that I can work towards it. There also you need a pramatra. I have to gain that knowledge and I have to do something. In both cases, having gained the knowledge, I have to do something about it. I want a car, a particular type of car. I know about the car because I've seen it. I've studied the brochures. I even taken a test drive. Now I have to do something. I have to go and buy the car for which I need the necessary wherewithal. Same thing with Swargaloka. I know Swargaloka, I know it's desirable. In the case of car, at least, I think it's desirable because I've seen somebody else owning that car and I think, oh, how happy he must be. Which may or may not be true. How happy I will be if I can get hold of that car. At least in Swargaloka case, there is a pramana, a means of knowledge which tells you it is very desirable. There also you need a pramatru, a person who knows, the knower. But when you come to this Purushartha called moksha, what did Shastra say? You are making a mistake. You have to know who you really are. What is that I? Who is that knower? Now, if I have to know the knower, there should there be another knower, another Pramatra? If there's another Pramatra, you get into a silly regression. The difference between the other two and this is that there is no second Pramatra, no separate knower. You are the knower, you are the known, you are the knowledge. This we will examine in greater detail in further classes. And we'll also see what Kenopanishad has to say about these. We'll do that tomorrow. Om
Thank you, Swami G.
Purnamidam Purnat
Purnat
Purnamudachyate
Purnamudachyate
Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashyate Om
Shanti
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 Harihi
Harihi
Om
Om Shri
Gurubhyo
Gurubhyo
Namaha
Namaha Harihi Om